Welcome back, South Carolina. Today we're joined by Sarah Grace Allen from Lexington County. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. So, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, your background, and
Sure.
what got you started in the movement?
Okay, sure, yeah. Well, I grew up in Irmo. I come from a homeschooling family of 8 children. I was the only daughter. And we had a little farm out there. And we moved to Lexington about 15 years ago. My grandmother passed away and she left us an inheritance. She left each of us an inheritance, and we pulled it together to open up our business, Mama Rabbits, which is a restaurant in Lexington. So we've been living in Lexington for the last 15 or so years, and we are coming up on our 11th year open as Mama Rabbits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've always enjoyed, being an avid reader and an avid lover of history and homeschool. Politics was something that was always discussed in our household. My dad actually has his degree in political science from Brown University.
Okay.
So that was a big thing for him. He ended up working in finance for his whole life, but that's what he got his degree in.
Yeah.
But he was very influential in our homeschool and, explaining how government works and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's always been something that my family has been involved in. And we think it's important because as, Christians, our goal is to see God's will done on earth as it is in heaven.
That's right.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of professing Christians have forgotten what the goal is, and that they kind of get into politics and just kind of start going along with the status quo of how things are run, and they forget why we're actually here and involved.
That's right. And the Bible teaches us to live a conservative lifestyle.
Absolutely,
you know, so all we have to do is just go back to the source.
Exactly.
That kind of gets me a little bit when I see the way things are going, and then, like you say, you'll have Christians, and then it's like you're going against what your teachings are.
Right.
So if you believe in this, and this is how you profess yourself, then why are you going against it?
Exactly.
So, like you say, it's kind of the status quo, you know, of being in that group.
Right.
You know? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've always been politically involved with what's going on in our country, but we were never involved in anything until we, on a local level, until we kind of, with having our business open, one of the main pivotal moments for us was when the mask mandates were being put into effect in Lexington.
Yes.
And my business never enforced them because we believed it was infringing upon our freedoms to enforce that, so we weren't going to enforce it on our customers. We got a lot of heat for that one. I spoke a couple times at town council trying to fight the mask mandates that they were trying to implement. And that's kind of one of the pivotal moments where I and my family and my restaurant was put on the map in Lexington as, conservative people within the community who everyone could see were willing to stand up for what was right and what we believed in, even if we were getting all this heat.
Yeah.
And we weren't backing down. And so that happened, 2020. And then 2021 was when my family and I went to January 6th in D.C.
Okay.
And we were hit hard coming home from that one, and all the accusations, and it felt like the entire world was trying to cancel us and our business. And again, we stood our ground, and we didn't witness anything illegal or wrong happen at January 6th. For where we were, it was literally what it claimed to be, which was a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
And that's what I witnessed, and that's what I participated in. There were nuns, there were the elderly, there were kids in strollers, I don't know about you, but if I was going to plan an insurrection, I wouldn't bring my toddlers.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And I would also bring some weapons, which none of us did because we're peaceful, law-abiding citizens. But
that's right.
I'm going to get off on that tangent. But yeah, that really was something that my family endured, that, the devil meant to harm us with all the hate that was coming our way, but what it really did was it not only, we had to expand our business because of how much the community came together to support us.
That's amazing.
And we didn't have room for everybody in our little cafe, so we had to expand even more. So, we weren't on an hours-long wait every day for just a regular Tuesday lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that, again, we kind of, for lack of a better term, made a name for ourselves in the community of being, Christian conservatives who really, stuck to what we believed in, no matter what was said about us or to us or how people reacted. So, and it was shortly after that, it was around 2022 that we kind of started becoming a little bit more involved with our local Lexington County Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And there was kind of a rough start with that, and we were kind of, we were brand new on the scene, but we were realizing that there were issues there, and, thankfully, we were able to move past those issues. In the last 2 years, we've just been really diligent in trying to, take the Republican Party, our local Republican Party, and make it mean something again.
That's right.
Because, again, there's just a lot of the status quo that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to really be involved on the grassroots level of, the true Christian conservative workers who are in the trenches doing the hard work. And we just wanted to build on that movement because we see what we can accomplish through that.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need to kind of backslide into that same kind of status quo mentality of, now we're being recognized on the scene of politics. We're becoming a leading county, of the Republican parties throughout the state.
Yeah.
That is absolutely not the time for us to kind of
back off,
get comfortable and back off because suddenly
right.
we're having attention and we don't want to, upset the apple cart.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would say that it's high time the apple cart got upset because, Republicans have been doing a lot of sitting on their hands.
Yeah, I can agree. And, with the supermajority of, in South Carolina.
Right.
I wonder what's holding them back.
Right.
And there are great people on both sides. So, but at what point do you put aside your personal,
right?
Your personal stuff, and then you say, "Hey, this is what the people put me in office for.
Exactly.
So I have to stand my ground." And there's going to be heat no matter where you come from. So because no matter what, if there's someone that's always going to strongly disagree with you, no matter who they are, like you said, your family caught some heat,
right?
And I'm sure none of those people, or 98% of them, didn't even know who y'all were,
right?
And so just random people doing nonsense, and so there's always going to be people that strongly disagree, and so you have to be willing to take that. And I think that a lot of them are fearful of that. They don't want that heat, and then they don't want to have to face it. But if you know what you're doing is right, and you know that you're doing it on behalf of your platform, and you're doing it, for your constituents, for the community, to better our state, then you're doing what's right. You don't have to follow up with that. Let them say what they say. It's like alligator skin. You got to have some pretty thick skin to be in that game, and which I'm sure you've acquired by now, right? So yeah,
for better or worse, yes.
Yeah. So you're up. So you're running for a position in the state, right?
Yes, I'm running for the SCGOP State Executive Committee woman position.
Okay.
And I had no. Well, the state EC is basically who represents our county party at the state level, and I had no interest or desire again to have any kind of political position at all.
Yeah.
I've been very involved with my community, and I'm, trying to stand up for what's right, and to help better our community and to help build upon the energy and the excitement, especially within the younger generation. In my generation, that is that young, but we're the new blood that I feel like that we need. Not that there's been anything wrong with not necessarily anything wrong with the individuals of the old guard. I think a lot of, these people got into it, I believe, with good intentions of doing the right thing, but then they got relaxed, they got comfortable, or they, they started playing that political game of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah.
You're my friend, I'm your friend, so I won't say this, you don't say that.
Doors,
and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, guys, like, we're not making a difference with that.
No.
And unfortunately, I feel like the older generations tend to demean those of us. They're kind of like referring to us as like these young upstarts from 2020. Well, I think what happened is that 2020 was an eye-opener. I don't think it had anything to do with being activist upstarts. I think people just woke up at 2020. And then, Trump's first term obviously did a lot to kind of energize a lot of people. And then when we saw how our rights were being infringed in 2020, it was like, okay, we, the people, need to stand up.
Yeah, we do.
We can't trust who is in office, and we shouldn't trust who is in office. Our electeds are our employees, and for a long time, I feel like they've been treated more like celebrities.
Yeah, I could see that sure.
I think that's where we're finding a lot of issues. Is that people don't want to stand up. They don't want to be saying the unpopular thing, but if you don't stand up, then nothing changes. And I think 2020 was a wake-up call for everyone to realize we need a change.
And I truly believe that a lot of those folks that don't want to say anything, they're thinking the exact same thing.
Right.
When someone gets up there and says it, they're just like, wow, that's right.
Exactly.
But then they get this feeling of, well, man, they just spoke on the truth. So, oh, I didn't do that, so then they want to come at you, and it's just like, but we're all thinking it, like, we all see it, like, none of us are blind to what's going on here, but, and it takes that, you have to be able to be comfortable, and the good with the bad, you got to take it, and so, again, it's refreshing to hear your viewpoint and your thoughts on that right there.
Right.
And so,
well, and that's why I never wanted any kind of position, but I saw as we were heading into our county convention that, our state EC that we've had for the last 2 years has not done anything. And when we were kind of having these discussions of like, oh, who do you think can run? And we weren't really seeing who would be able to fill that hole where it was going to make a difference. I think a lot of people have good intentions and they vote the right way, but they don't necessarily have the grit that it takes to be able to withstand the heat and the pressure that you will inevitably receive.
I agree with that.
In those positions.
Yeah.
And it's, we all have our different strengths. And so that was an opportunity where I felt like, okay, if I need to step up, I will. I was waiting till the last minute in case there was a better candidate that we could approach, or who stood up themselves to fill that position, but nothing kind of came about, and I was like, okay, then I'll do this because I feel like it's an important position that needs to be filled, and I think we need to really be putting pressure. We do a lot to pass resolutions at the county level, and I think the state GOP does a lot of good things, but we're not really putting the pressure on our elected officials to really follow through with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And right. I'm somebody who's going to ensure that they follow through with that.
Yeah, and that's awesome to hear. So it's like you said, you never had no vision of doing this, right? And so sometimes God puts these doors all around us, and we don't see them. But then when you notice things that aren't going on, or you notice things that could be done differently, or should be done differently, or should just be not even different, but they should be enforced, like, hey, like, we have this position, this is the authority that you have, why aren't, you exercising that? So that was your opportunity. So it was almost like a calling. Right. That's how I see it. It's like, okay, so God put it on your heart. The position was there. Right. And now here we are. You're running for it, right?
Exactly.
So now with that position, is that just every county with the GOP, they're able to do that, or is this a state thing, or like, can you get into, for everyone listening, like the dynamics of how that works?
Well, so every county party has their different precincts, their districts with their precinct has their EC that comes to the county party to vote on resolutions or whatever. So they have their representative, and so the state EC is basically that same person at the state level for our county party.
Gotcha.
So I would love to be able to represent our county. My family and I have done a lot of work in helping move this county party forward.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just because we're trying to get that energy and excitement and involvement on the grassroots level from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I think a lot of people kind of pay attention to what goes on nationally or even what goes on, even state, on a state level, just, at the state house.
Yeah.
But they're not paying attention to their town council, their county council, their school boards. And I think we all know that the past 4 years have been really encouraging more involvement on those levels, because we really aren't going to be able to do much if we're not fixing everything from every level up.
That's right.
So,
and just to back on that, your local municipalities, that is really the foundation to get to the state, to get to the federal. So you need to start in the local. And I think I've seen where a lot of folks have neglected their local municipalities, school board, council, anything. I mean, if there's a board, if they're planning and zoning, every bit of that matters.
Right.
And so I think that it's a great point you make. Like, we really do need to focus on that, because that is where we actually build our community from.
Right.
It's not the federal government.
No.
It's that local level where we hit the ground and say, okay, we're going to stack this brick by brick.
Right.
And I mean, it takes 1,000 bricks to make a wall. But if it's only 2 bricks there, you're not going to have nothing.
Right.
And so so to your point, it
takes more of us to stand up. And the problem is that a lot of good people normal people don't want to get involved in politics because of how corrupt it has become. And they see how there's just a lot of doing but not getting anything done. And, we're busy. We have families, we have jobs, we have, kids. And nothing's going to change if those of us who have that foundation of, that Christian conservative values, who have eyes, who have common sense, and who have the backbone to stand on what they believe in no matter what, but we need to be putting ourselves in those positions and allowing God to use us in those positions.
That's right.
So that we can rewrite what has happened over the, last 50 years or so of just the kind of the same old.
Yeah. And it would be great to see.
Yeah.
It
and
really
I think it's coming, and I think we just need to kind of nurture that energy and excitement, and to encourage others to get involved and to see, like, change can be made. And it just takes one of us to encourage another one, and then another one, and then you just build upon that.
Yeah, that's right. So I noticed your party, the Lexington County Party, you guys was recognized, right?
Yes.
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And so, can you talk about the work that y'all done to receive that recognition?
Wait, which recognition are you referring to?
From the state? Did y'all get more resolutions passed?
Oh, right. That was, yes. Oh, right. That was the post. The post I wrote. I'm the social media director.
Yeah.
Yes. No, so we were just kind of, as we were heading into reorg and we were getting folks excited, we just kind of listed what we've accomplished in just 2 years. And this is, and honestly, it's more like a year and a half, because as you know, there was that issue at the beginning from the previous leadership of stuff that was going on. So we really kind of got started on a really rocky foundation, but we were able to clean up and, pull up from that. And so we just kind of, my committee and I kind of made a list of, what we've accomplished in the last year and a half to kind of show our party members that, when you're kind of in the thick of it and in the trenches, you don't see necessarily the progress you're making until you kind of step back and are able to list it out of, like, this is what we've accomplished in such a short amount of time. What more can we do?
That's right.
With more of us and generating that excitement, not sitting on our laurels, not getting, comfortable with the, establishment status quo of how parties are run. It's like, we got to keep that young, fresh energy and excitement from the ground level up, because, Trump is doing a good job of putting pressure from the top down.
Yes, he is.
And it's our job to put that pressure from the bottom up so that we can actually, make a complete difference.
Yeah. So how are things? So so obviously you're running against the incumbent in your party.
No,
right?
he's not running anymore. our current EC is not running again.
Are they not? Okay, okay. So how is the relationship with everything that you see in the leadership in Lexington County, as far as with your party?
Well, it's kind of in an unfortunately not a great place right now, because I myself, as part of the leadership within the party, not an elected leadership. I'm just the committee chair for the social media committee, but I'm a part of the steering committee as a whole. We started noticing where there were certain conflicts that were arising because there were individuals in our leadership who were compromising on certain issues that was concerning to those of us within leadership, and then we would try to have conversations about that and kind of get to the bottom of what was going on, and they weren't having conversations. And it kind of started with, we were kind of seeing this odd propensity to not want to talk, want to do things and then report about it later. And it was just kind of one of the main points for me that was disturbing was when my committee, my social media committee, we were told really not to promote the reorg, our county reorg, on social media, which didn't make sense to me because we have all this energy and excitement and we want more people to get involved. We want those people involved in the precinct level and to become delegates and to become, ECs for that. I mean, organize everything.
That's
it's right there at our fingertips.
Yeah.
And we were being told to stand down by our leadership from posting about it.
Did they give you any reason why?
So the reason that they gave was a very vague reason of our former chair that we had issues with. The reason was we don't want that person and their people to then all of a sudden become involved in reorg. And I'm thinking, well, the majority of our followers, they kind of splintered off to their own devices, basically. They haven't been involved with the party. They're kind of involved in their own party and living in their own separate bubble of what they want to do. So that didn't make any sense to me because we post about everything else. We've gotten so much excitement from everybody else. The majority of we grew our county party page, our Facebook page, to have the most action and reaction of all the county parties that we're able to see on Facebook. If you look at any other county party, I'm not disparaging them, but I'm just saying, we kind of took that little, project that was given to us and we really built upon it exponentially, and such that other county parties are following our page and saying, oh my gosh, like when my brother, who's the third vice chair, did his, he did a video explaining, really breaking down what reorg is, which is great because a lot of people don't know how the party functions, all those little details, and it kind of intimidates people from getting involved because they don't know what goes on. So that was a point where John was able to kind of break down what reorg is to simplify it so people could understand, and they're like, oh yeah, then let me sign up. I want to go to reorg,
That's right.
And other county parties were sharing our video and just saying ours is on a different date, but watch this video. This is Lexington.
Awesome.
It's
that's
great.
Awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, we just have a lot of engagement on our page. So it didn't make sense why we wouldn't promote reorg on our page to get more people involved.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
And then it made even less sense when all of a sudden our members were being sent an email from the state GOP encouraging people to become involved in reorg, and they were sending out a survey using our letterhead, our county party letterhead. And I said, wait a second.
The state was doing that?
The state GOP, yeah. And I'm like, we didn't sanction, but to my knowledge, a state GOP person involving themselves in our county reorg. That's not the way it's supposed to go. We're supposed to build from the bottom up, not the top telling us how to. Yeah,
that does sound odd.
So it was kind of odd for me. And, I brought that to the steering committee, and I wasn't the only one who was upset by it and who didn't know, because it wasn't even sent to all of the members. It was only sent to some. So they were kind of...
I've experienced that before.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was kind of looking like the state GOP were avoiding certain members, but trying to target others to get them involved. And it didn't make any sense. And, it was one of those things where I said, as the chair for my committee, and Preston, who works on my committee, we were like, well, we need to post about this, because we asked our leadership, hey, we didn't know about this, what's going on here? And they said, well, our first vice chair, she said, I didn't know about this. But it was like 3 hours before our chairman even replied in the chat. And we were like, the longer that, those 3 hours, a long 3 hours, we were like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And he said that, I think there was a miscommunication, and, they kind of overstepped their bounds on that, but I've written him to send out another email to kind of correct, because this person from the GOP was basically saying, I'm helping the Lexington County organize, and
but only sending it to select few people. So
exactly.
How is that helping?
Right, exactly.
It almost sounds like you're stacking the deck.
Thank you.
That's my opinion.
Yeah,
and this is me looking.
Anybody with two eyes looking at the situation, that's kind of what it's looking like.
Yeah.
And so he said, I think he overstepped, and I've asked him to write another email to clarify that, and he wrote another email and basically doubled down on that, saying, I'm working with the Lexington County Republican Party to help reorganize, but feel free to also reach out to the leadership if you have any questions, but you can reach out to me too. So I thought that was odd. Yeah. So at that point, I'm like, okay, well, we need to post, if this was truly not sanctioned by us.
That's right.
We need to post it on our social media page and say, hey, this is using our letterhead. We did not sanction this email. From the looks of it, only some of y'all got it, but not others. But you can disregard, because this, we don't have anything to do with this.
Yeah.
And so I made that suggestion, and Preston and I made a little write-up to post about it. And again, I'm not saying anything against this fellow from the state GOP.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know him. I don't know whose orders he was following or what have you. Right. But it was just not what we were expecting or what we had agreed upon or anything. So we had said we were going to write that, and our county chairman said, no, we're not going to clarify that. And I said, well, that's just from an optics standpoint, that doesn't look good, because if you didn't sanction something, but then not correcting and saying, hey, I didn't sanction this.
That's right.
That doesn't look, it kind of looks like you sanctioned it.
Yeah, it draws a lot of questions.
It does draw a lot of questions. So I was just saying, and other people in the steering committee were saying, that's not really a good look. But we were told to stand down from that. And so, so that was one of the issues that I witnessed, among others, that were kind of, as we got closer to reorg, it was becoming more and more clear that our current leadership was not operating in the transparency it once claimed to and what we once thought they did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of like, it's been like clockwork. The more time has passed, the more stuff has come out about kind of secret, operating in secrecy, operating in slander, operating in, underhanded means. And now recently I, which you might have seen on my Facebook, because I've been posting about all this stuff, because I'm like, our party members need to know what's going on.
That's right.
And I'm not here to be a whistleblower for the sake of just, creating drama. It's drama because bad things are being done, not because I'm saying, hey, this is what's being done.
Yeah.
I'm just reporting.
You're just bringing it to the table.
I'm just being a witness.
Yeah,
so
you're bringing it to the table.
Yeah, and I'm asking questions, and my brother has been asking questions, and it's kind of like the more questions you ask, if you ask questions, you're labeled as a troublemaker, an upstart. And I'm like, we never up to this point, until it was proven to us, made any accusations.
Mm-hmm.
We had just started by just asking questions.
Yeah.
And if you're in leadership and you take a question as a threat, that's on you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think those of us in leadership need to be able to have any discussion, answer any question, face the situation head on.
Exactly right.
And I said,
right or wrong,
you
need to address it
right.
either way.
And I said, so many times in trying to discuss these things, these issues with leadership, I was like, if what I'm seeing, and there were more issues than just that one that I stated. There have been other things happening, and then as of recently realizing that that the chairman and the first vice chair are not actually following the rules when it comes to they're allowing our chairman to hand select delegates after reorg and after the makeup meeting.
That's not ethical.
Right. It didn't sound ethical when they first told me when we were at the steering. We didn't know that he had been 12 days after our makeup meeting, which unless you're involved in a county party, none of this is really making sense. But basically you have reorg where your precinct reorganizes and your officers in your precinct are elected as well as delegates. So then if a precinct is still unorganized or there are delegate slots to be filled, delegates are who's able to vote at the county convention for all of the offices for the party. You're able to come to the makeup meeting to fill those, right? Well, 12 days after our makeup meeting, we were in a steering meeting, and my brother happened to ask, have there been the P1 forms where that's where you sign up to be a delegate? Have there been P1 forms that we have accepted after the makeup meeting? And there was dead silence. And then our chairman said, yes. 12 days after our makeup meeting. Many of us did not know that was a thing. So we said, oh, is that allowed in the rules? And our first vice chair, who happens to also be the chair of our Rules and Resolutions Committee, she said, yes, it is allowed in the rules, but it's accepting delegates is under the chair's discretion.
Is that something y'all have looked into?
Well, the funny thing is that when she said that, on the front end, it didn't make sense to me because it didn't make sense that one person would be allowed to accept a delegate because that's somebody who votes. You know what I'm saying? So on the front end, that just didn't make sense why one person would be in charge of that and it not be, more of a democratic situation. Yeah, exactly. And so, but I took it for face value because I'm like, she's the rules chair. I'm sure she knows what she's talking about. But then it was actually the next day that I was looking at our rules and I realized it doesn't say that at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the more I read it, I was doing, I'm not an attorney and I don't pretend to be one, but I can read.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it was kind of like I was asking, okay, can we cite, and Preston and other members of the committee were also asking, because we were confused by this process. Like, it didn't make sense that delegates could just keep, under the chair's sole purview and discretion and timeline, just keep being accepted. It felt, this doesn't feel right, you know?
Something was off.
Knew something was off, and so we were asking, can y'all cite the rule where it says that this is allowed? And they couldn't. To this day, they are not able to cite a rule where it says it's allowed. There's in State Rule 4, C11, me being an attorney, it says that basically the first sentence is talking about the makeup meeting, and it basically says the county chair shall also set the date for the makeup meeting, is essentially what that first sentence says. And we were being told by leadership that because the beginning of that sentence says the county chair shall, that county chair shall gives him purview to continue to accept delegates and basically do what he wants. It was kind of like a hall pass for the county chair because the beginning of the sentence says the county chair shall. And I said, yeah, it says the county chair shall set the date for the makeup meeting, period.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
pretty
cut and dry.
Yeah. So it's just kind of been a lot of just our leadership hasn't been upfront. They haven't been truthful. And those of us who have asked questions are being labeled as, damaging to the county party. And I'm like, we're just asking questions.
That's right.
You're not answering questions. And then when it kind of got to a point where our chairman was then slandering my brother, who's the third vice chair. He was calling our party members saying, slandering him, slandering me, slandering my family. And we're like, and this was in the beginning, before any of this stuff was like, became public. And we were just trying to like have a conversation with our leadership internally.
That's right.
And they wouldn't have a conversation, but then they were calling party members, slandering us. And then when they started their campaign, it all started on, basis of false accusations towards us. And all we've done, and even then we held off because we were going to attempt again. We've attempted ad nauseum to have a conversation with them, to address this, to, have some form of mediated, meeting where we can kind of come together and discuss this.
That's right.
And that's been rejected left and right. But we held off on our campaigns to refute the false accusations and the slander, to once again try. And again, they didn't want to meet. And so we finally publicly refuted what was being said about us and all that. And now they've just kind of tried to take our refutation with evidentiary support to back what we've claimed and what, we've stated to be truth. And, we're labeled we're damaging the party and we're causing all this drama, and we're like, we're just refuting the false claims made by leadership.
That's right.
We weren't making accusations. We were just refuting theirs.
Yeah.
With truth to back it up. And then it was kind of like, after that, it was just kind of like they just dug their heels in even more. And then it was after that the stuff with the rules and everything. And then I'm just like posting on Facebook, like, and I'm highlighting stuff, and I'm like, but I'm doing it first in the steering chat, like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But please show me where that this is allowed. And they can't do that. And then they don't want to have and then they don't want to have a conversation about it. And they're like, I'm done. I'm not talking to you anymore. And so sorry.
That's not a good attitude to have.
No, and so long story long. That already made it long, but it's basically where we realize, these are people that we considered friends, that we were kind of at the beginning of the party, establishing ourselves in the trenches with.
Yeah.
And so to see this turn and to see how it's kind of like they were blood brothers, for lack of a better word. And then to see this switch, and I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened that all of a sudden, and I knew something didn't feel right, that the more kind of notoriety we got as a county party, the more our chairman was like bragging about the elbows he was rubbing with, and people we had not only just not endorsed for certain positions, but were campaigning against for our guy. He was saying at our monthly meeting, like, oh, and so shook my hand. And I'm thinking, we were campaigning against him. Why do you care if he shook your hand?
Yeah.
I don't understand what happened, where it was just kind of like we were in the trenches getting things done, and then all of a sudden it stops.
Yeah. Well, and to your point there, so I'll say this: I've come across a lot of people that's met, leader, representatives, senators, whoever they may be, the governor, and again, I mean, they might all be great people,
right?
Who's to say? But we look at their jobs and see what they do, but you could be against them, and I've watched this happen, and in the moment, just like you said, the moment the opportunity strikes and they're in the same room, and then you shake hands or you take a picture or you get a phone number or whatever, now that just changed your whole perspective. Right. And it's just like, they're still the same person. Like, we still pay their paychecks. You know? So, like, they work for us at the end of the day. So their numbers are listed. So if you want their number, just get online, go to the state's website.
Right.
There it is. There's their office building. I mean, there's everything you need to know right there. So go visit them.
Exactly.
They're not celebrities, and just because you have that, but it tends to boost people. Like, oh, I know this person, I know that person. It's just like, well, great, but that information is public. I mean,
Right.
just get online and look it up. There it is. Like,
Right.
you want their address, you want their email, like,
Yeah.
here, we'll add that to your contact list as well. But it should never persuade you to change, especially
Right.
when you have that much momentum, and especially what you guys have done and what you continue to do. And then, if that is the case, I don't know if that's the case. I'm just giving you my point of view on it. But if you have something like that, and you're letting a handshake or even a phone number or even a conversation, any of that, get into the way of the progress you're making, and now you want to do a 180,
Right.
and turn your back on the people that have been there, like you said, in the trenches.
Yep.
That just doesn't sound
Right.
right. You know, it doesn't, and that's my point of view. You know, but it just doesn't sound right.
Right.
And it makes
Well,
me
and then,
have to question
right.
everything. So now I'm not just, and this is just how I operate, I'm not going to look at what's going on right now. I'm going to rewind the clock, and I'm going to start looking at everything,
Yeah.
you know, since my involvement, and I'm going to say, okay, so now I need to question this. Not just what we're in right now, because again, that's how my mind works, and then you tend to find out in those situations that, oh, okay, if we go back, I remember this one time, or you remember this one meeting, or this one email, or whatever it may be. Like I say, I've been excluded from emails where there were meetings in our county where there was emails sent out. They should have never been sent out.
Right.
And it was to get a group of people together, like-minded, which I thought we were all like-minded, honestly.
Right.
And till we found this out, and then I get a call saying, hey, did you go to the meeting? And I'm like, what? No. Like, we've already had our monthly meeting. What meeting? It was like, oh, well, there was a meeting. Like, you didn't get invited either? And I was like, no. So, like, is this a thing?
Yeah.
And come to find out it was, you know, and they used our county, our county GOP email address. Everything was legit, far as the email was.
As if it was an official.
Exactly right. But it was only
sent to certain people.
To certain people, yeah. And I'll go ahead and say it. I mean, they stacked the deck. But then it made us look bad as a county, because the folks got to the convention, they didn't even know what to do. So they put these people in there, and I've never seen them in there, like ever seen them in there. And then they put them in there, they give them these positions, and because the vote, I mean, everyone's outvoted. So it's just like, okay, we stacked the room with these people, now they're outvoted, okay, boom, they're selected. Then they go to convention, and they didn't have a clue.
Right.
So when their reports came back to present to everyone at the next meeting, it was just like they didn't have anything. They didn't know what to, and it's just like, okay, so how did y'all even get selected for that? Like, who nominated you? Like, who? How did any of this go about? And so that's when, again, you had to go back, or I did. I went back and said, okay, so let me check this out. Let me check that out. And, but when you have leadership, and then this goes for any leadership, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a politician, whether you're an executive chair, anybody like that, whenever you're faced with certain situations and there are questions that not only have to, but need to be answered, especially the tough ones, you know, and that nowadays they tend to run from those, but you have to address that head on. Like, you can't ignore it, because by ignoring it, you're making the other person's case. You're literally, without saying a word, you're sealing their case. Done. It's okay. So
and that's where we were realizing, you know, there's a problem here. If you respond to a question like it's a threat when it's not, it's just a question. Respond to it, you know, say it's an accusation, it's not, it's a question, and then you don't answer it, and then you shut down the conversation entirely. I don't know about you, but first of all, it's making you look guilty, and second of all, just in a management standpoint, that is not how you manage a leadership. It's not how you manage a party.
That's right.
And I don't believe that, you know, people should be, you know, in leadership positions that run from problems.
No.
And run from conflict.
Yeah.
And then when there are people who are trying to, you know, resolve that conflict, they're being accused, they're being slandered, you know, they're being bad-mouthed, and it's just kind of like, this is not how you operate, much less a county party, but just, you know, as decent people, this is not how we operate.
That's right.
And it's kind of like, you know, we were seeing our county party just turn into like a high school clique.
Yeah. And that's never good.
And, you know, you're going to have different personalities, and we've all been able to work with each other regardless of our different personalities. But it's when you're getting into that nitty-gritty of you can't answer a question, you can't have a discussion, you know, where do we go from that?
Well, and the different personalities, I mean, that's a great thing. That's what makes us individuals, you know? So, again, so we might have the same passion for the same thing, but the way you approach it versus the way I approach it, it could be totally different, you know, but it's the same passion. We have the same love,
and
the
you
same
balance
care.
each other.
Yeah, exactly right.
And that's what we've learned as a family business, too.
And figure out, hey, Sarah, you know, you love this, I love this, I'm going about it this way, you're going about it that way. How can we tackle this together? Right. And then we'll feed off one another, and then where we have good plans, then we make one great plan. Exactly. You know, so that's good, and you should never... I've never, so it kind of goes back to the last administration where there was a lot of questions unanswered. Right. And to now, for people to put themselves in that situation, it's just like, well, like you. Wait
a second.
Yeah, like.
You're doing the same thing you blamed that person for doing.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So, yeah. And that's where it's just kind of like, okay, well, it kind of feels like we're banging our head against the wall because you're just kind of like, and the problem is a lot of people, this is the issue we've run into, is that there are a lot of people who, because of how far we've come over the last 2 years, they don't want that to be quote unquote disrupted because of this conflict. And because there are folks running, you know, two people running for the same position. Yeah. And my point is we can't not do the right thing because we're trying to save the image of our Republican Party. That means that the Republican Party has become an idol for you. If you're not willing to stand on truth,
that's right,
and you're willing to compromise truth to save the image of the party, then your God is the image of the party, and it's not truth. And I don't believe, as you know, I'm sure probably everybody in the county party claims to be a Christian. And I don't see anywhere in, you know, imagine if Jesus didn't say anything to the Pharisees because he was worried about losing volunteers. Yeah. Or worried about losing his disciples or anything, or worried that, you know, he might hurt somebody's feelings that he's known in all his life. Yeah. And I believe that as Christians, we're supposed to walk as he walked, and we're called to do that. And nowhere do you see Jesus compromising truth for the sake of someone's feelings, for the sake of a political party. Yeah. You know, he said, you know, he came to be a sword of division because truth will divide.
It will.
It absolutely will divide. And it's not because, you know, you love to have division and you're some kind of upstart, you know, disruptor like they tried to act like Jesus was. That's what he was being, you know, said against him. But, you know, he says, you know, he came, the truth is a sword of division, and if you love your father, your mother, your whoever, your county party, the image you have within your county party, if you love any of that more than the truth, which is Jesus himself, then you're not worthy of him. And that's the part where it's kind of like it just kind of separates the men from the boys and saying like, hey, I work hard too. Like it kind of, you kind of forget, like we also worked hard in this party, but we're not going to compromise and allow things to be done that are wrong, and for people to be slandered and hurt, and for lies to be propagated, and, you know, rules to be broken, and just kind of turn a blind eye and sweep it under the rug for the sake of the image of the county party. We didn't do that 2 years ago, and we're not going to do it now.
And that's what shows honor and integrity, you know, in someone's character, because by taking that, you know, again, you're not willing to compromise your honor and your integrity, and at least you're bringing that forward. You're showing that, you know. So we need more of that, right? And if that means, again, this isn't an age thing, but like past, like maybe the younger generation needs to get more involved, right? Because we tend to speak our minds a whole lot more, right? And it's not about what you think of us, because, you know, like we discussed, like as long as you're happy internally with the person looking back at you, you're good. I mean, there's two people, and that's God And then that's us. We know the truth of who we are and what we do and what we stand for. And if you're happy with that image looking back, God knows the rest.
Right.
So go ahead. Do what you do. I mean, they can't hurt you.
Exactly.
You know, and words are words. And so what I tell them, you know, you can like, people will talk until like they have nothing else to offer. And so but that. And there's no action to back it up. There's nothing. And when you're called on something like this, you really should have to, or you would think that someone with honor, with integrity, would stand up and say, well, here, let me clarify this.
Exactly.
Let me break this down.
Here, let me show you where I know how that looked, but I'm going to show you how it's not how it looked. You might have had some bad information, which, you know, when I was coming to leadership and my concerns, I even said that. I said, listen, I'm willing to be corrected if what I've seen and what's going on isn't what it seems on the front end, or if I have had bad false information given to me about, you know, these things, please correct me. Like, I don't want there to be an issue.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm coming to you with my concerns to kind of figure out what's going on. This is troubling me. It's looking, you know, it's concerning a lot of us, not just me, but, you know, I say it out loud. And when you can't have that conversation, then what else am I supposed to think? Other than that I'm right, and you don't want to have that conversation because what I'm seeing is actually what's happening.
Well, like I say, the longer it doesn't get any attention, I mean, it makes the case.
Right.
I mean, it does.
Yeah.
Like, and that's with anything. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could pick a subject, but if we bring this to your attention, and you're dodging that, and you're refusing to answer, and then the answers that you do give, we find out that, okay, well, we look here, we don't see that, so maybe we overlooked it, could you show us?
Right. If you're not operating in integrity, you can't have open conversation. You can't. And that's why, you know, when we were talking at the before we started recording, and you were asking me, and you were, you know, telling me about somebody who had brought you a list of, you know, what you're allowed to ask them, and then you offered, you know, you were gracious and said, what would you like to touch on? And I said, honestly, we can touch on however the conversation goes. I don't have any kind of pre-planned ideas for this interview, but I'm operating in truth, transparency, and honesty as a person, as, you know, as myself.
That's right.
But also as someone who is, you know, running for an office within this county party. But that's the same person. That's what you see is what you get.
Exactly.
So you can ask me about anything, and it might be an uncomfortable conversation because, you know, there's conflict or drama involved, but I can have that conversation with you because I'm not hiding anything.
Exactly.
And anything I've said or anything I've done can be brought to you, and you can ask me about it. I mean, everybody can see my Facebook. I've made a name for myself of being very transparent on my Facebook. And that's where, you know, I get in trouble by those who aren't operating honestly, because I'll say, you know, I'll share the screen. If you're gonna lie and accuse me of, you know, being a liar, I'm going to show the screenshot that proves this is what happened. And this is my evidence to back what I'm saying is true, and that you are not being truthful right now.
That's right.
And I don't know why someone in leadership would have a problem with, you know, conversations in our steering committee, which our steering committee, anybody can come to our steering committee meetings. We operate as a body for the county party. These are not like private executive sessions by any stretch of the imagination. So if you're confident in what you're standing on, why would you have a problem if I'm showing the receipts?
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
Nope, shouldn't.
And so that's where it's clear to a lot of people, but unfortunately there are some in the party who would just rather not say anything, who would rather, you know, support the you know, established chair and first vice for their positions just for the sake of saving the image of the party. And I don't think that's how we need to operate.
That doesn't sound good.
Especially when so much has come out, and then a lot of them were kind of holding out like, well, you might have, maybe he wasn't right in, you know, lying about your family or whatever, this, that, and the other, but, you know, he hasn't broken any rules. And then this recently came out, and I was like, kind of looks like they're breaking the rules here. And they won't answer my questions, and they're not able to cite a rule which proves that they can do this. So what else am I supposed to take from that other than that they're breaking the rules at this point? And, you know, how far can a leadership go before you draw the line yourself and say, hey, this isn't right?
Exactly, yeah.
And
totally agree.
Nobody wants this kind of conflict within the party. We've done a lot of great things. I don't believe that the great things that have been done are, you know, the narrative now has, you know, been these great things have been done because of our current chair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just because you're a chair doesn't mean that you are responsible for everything everyone else did collectively.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you know, so it's kind of, it's frustrating in that sense because we're saying we have done great things. That's why we're saying we don't want to see it make a left turn.
But you can't give credit to one person.
You can't give credit to one person, for sure.
That's like running a business. I mean,
exactly.
Even though you own that business, it takes everybody in that business
absolutely
to make it successful.
Yeah. And that's why we're saying we love this party. We are proud of the work we've accomplished, and we think we can accomplish even more. And we don't want to see it because of everything that's been shown, and we see kind of the writing on the wall and all these concerns that we have. We don't want to see it take a left turn, and to go back into what it was as just the same old do a lot, accomplish nothing party.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, again, I never wanted any kind of official position with any political party, but, you know, stepping up for this position and for my brother as well. This was kind of our last, basically, Hail Mary effort of we need to run for these positions so we can write the direction that this party is headed.
Yeah. Get it back on track.
And if that doesn't happen, then we're just going to step away because we can't align ourselves with compromise and, you know, bad dealings, because, you know, we're not called to do that.
That's right.
And we had already been doing so much for the conservative movement before we were even involved with that party that we can still do that. You know what I'm saying? It's not giving up on the movement. It's just saying I'm not aligning myself with a leadership that I know to be corrupt. And you know, my family, we had already made a name for ourselves in generating that excitement and the energy within the community as a whole before we were even involved with the party. Yeah. So we could still do that.
That's right.
So again, this is not something that I have any kind of aspirations for. It's just, you know, there's a position, someone needed to step up, nobody else was, so I was going to step up.
Yeah.
So
when we talk about accountability and transparency, those two words right there, so what does that mean to you? What does that look like to Sarah? And whichever one you want to tackle first. Accountability or transparency?
Yeah, both. They kind of go hand in hand. Because I believe, well, even for me just as a person, but especially me as a potentially elected official, is, you know, I don't work for myself. I work for the people who elected me. And so just like as a business owner who has employees, I expect to be able to ask my employees, you know, give them their reviews and say, hey, you know, you were doing this, this, and this is where you need to shape up, and, you know, this is how has it been going so far, and this is where I need to see improvement. And I believe that that's how the people who I represent need to treat me.
That's right.
And I need to be able to report to them exactly. I don't need to, as we've seen others do, not just in our party, but in, you know, politics in general. I'm not going to poo-poo anybody and say, oh, I'm not going to have that conversation, or, oh, I'm too busy for you, or anything. I need to be able to report to them because I work for them. And, you know, nothing I do or say, I mean, everything I do and say, you can ask me about. Yeah. You can question me. And I'm going to tell you, this is why I did this. This is why I said that. And I'm not going to, you know, shy from that or think that just because I have this position and I'm able to, you know, go to the state house, that I'm somehow, you know, better or above those conversations.
Yeah.
So I know I've made a name for myself as being somebody who in our party who, you can come to me about anything, you can text me about anything. I don't shy away from conversations. And that's just who I am, and that's who I'm going to continue to be, whether I win this position or not.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And when is the election?
The election is next week, is April 5th.
April the 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's when, and that's for everything, right? As far as with
the county party, yes. Mm-hmm. And I feel good about it. For me, it's just I live my life in terms of what purpose does God have for me? What doors is He opening? Where does He want me? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, God wins, because I'm doing what I believe. I'm trusting Him with my every step. Yeah. So if He wants me in this position, He's going to put me in this position.
That's right.
If He has something else for me, then that we're going to find that out too. But I'm doing what I know to be right and true, and representing Him in everything I do. And I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to being able to represent our county, because I know that I am that person who, at the state level, I'm going to be that person who's going to represent our county and to put the pressure on our elected officials to actually get the things done that we, the people, want done.
That's right.
And not just, sit idly by in your position at the state house and just, I, nay, going along with whatever. I'm going to be the person who's not going to back down, and who's going to, hold everyone's feet to the fire and say, we need to get stuff done.
That's
Let's
right.
do it.
And that's what we need.
Yeah.
I mean, and not just we need that everywhere, in so many places, and it's good to see the mindsets that are starting to change.
That's why I love the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah.
And my family and I have been huge supporters of the Freedom Caucus, and we've made a platform for them. Have you ever been to a Freedom Friday at our restaurant?
I haven't.
Oh. Mm-mm. Okay, so for last year especially, we started October before last, I think, was our first Freedom Friday. Where the first Friday of every month, we hold a meeting at our restaurant, and where like-minded conservatives can come together. We can discuss the current issues. Yeah. We invite officials, whether candidates running for office, or the Freedom Caucus speaks almost at everyone. Yeah. At least one member, but a lot of times several. And a couple of times we've had a whole lineup of guys from the Freedom Caucus to be able to take questions and really to kind of explain to everybody on the county grassroots level, what's going on at the State House, where we need you guys to put the pressure, how we need you guys to get involved. Mm-hmm. And it's just really a great community event where regular people can get involved, can understand what's going on. We're putting aces in places. We're getting people excited to run for these positions. And we're like, hey, we need somebody to run for such and such. Who would be interested in that? And it really kind of took off and made a name for itself. And we're very proud of that. And I mentioned that because, the Freedom Caucuses they've been featured speakers many, many times because my family just loves what they're doing at the state level. And, even if they're the only guys voting against, us spending millions of dollars for gummy bear transition statues or whatever. Oh, yeah. Whatever the latest crazy is that, our quote-unquote Republicans are voting in favor of.
They're willing to speak out against it.
They're willing to speak out against it, even if they're the only ones. And so we love that, and we support it. And that is what I look forward to doing in my own way in this position as state EC. So yeah.
Well, as the more I get to know you and hear you, and then just seeing your journey through all this, I truly believe that you would be the perfect person for that job.
I appreciate that.
I really do. I mean, your comments about accountability, transparency. A lot of people just throw them words around, but they can't give an actual answer like you just gave.
Right.
And
it's a buzzword, but it's not their way of life.
Exactly right. It's not. It's not. And the way you was able to take both of those and then just in one go and knock them both out. It's impressive, and being the one that don't mind speaking up, you know, like saying, "Hey, look, I'll be the one to say we're all thinking it, but I'll say it, you know, I'll say it." So here we go.
Yeah.
Buckle up, you know, because it's here it comes, and we have to get more people on that page, and so
and it's by speaking up that you inspire others to do that.
Exactly right.
You don't speak up and put yourself in the line of fire just because, you know, you kind of get off on being like the wild one.
Yeah.
You do it because it's the right thing to do, and you also know that even if you don't see it right now, which there were so many moments when I was when I was getting, you know, the times that, you know, they were trying to cancel me, they were trying to cancel my business because they're trying to cancel our business because I was vocalizing on my personal page. You know, we weren't using the restaurant page to, you know, talk about anything, but because, you know, the left likes to say things like, "Oh, she's a business owner; she's not allowed to have an opinion."
Right. Yeah.
Because that's American.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quickly learned that even if you don't see it in the moment and you're really being overwhelmed, because even those of us with the thickest skin, when you're getting those kind of comments and, you know, those disparaging comments and people demeaning you and lying about you and saying all manner of evil against you, it does get overwhelming. No matter how strong you are, there are moments where you're just like, it's not going to make you give up, but you're tired, you know?
Yeah.
But you don't realize in that moment that you are inspiring so many other people to stand up and to speak up. And that's what I was able to see kind of the fruit of, you know, what we went through in our community, see that others were able to take courage from that and to be able to implement it themselves and to realize, okay, we're not all alone. We've been the silent majority for a long time, but it's time for us to be silent no more.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like that. I do. Well, if you had one piece of advice that you could give anyone listening, like what would that be?
That would be to do the right thing, even if you're the only one doing the right thing. Because we're called to do God's will on earth as it is in heaven. And when we're standing for those values, God's going to honor that. And it may look dark and it may look grim, and you may be being canceled, you may be being hated, you may be receiving death threats, or whatever the situation is, and however it is uncomfortable for you in that moment, the Lord will honor you in standing for what's right and to standing for Him. Okay. So don't ever forget that, and just, you know, you can. It's tiring at times, but, you know, He makes us soar like on wings of eagles. So He's going to carry us through because we're trusting Him every step of the way.
That's right. That's right. And so for the toughest battles, He picks the strongest soldiers.
Yep.
So it's always going to be there's always going to be that pushback. But that's what we're designed for.
Right.
Is to keep pushing forward.
Amen.
You know.
Yeah.
I sat there and said something earlier, and you know, you never know how strong you really are until being strong is your only choice.
Yeah.
You know? So stay strong and push forward. And that's I posted that earlier because you think about it, you really don't, you know, because fear will overthrow anything if you let it.
Yeah.
It's if you let it.
If you let it,
And then, but if you don't and you take that step, it's like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Then your confidence builds.
Right.
And then you're getting stronger
and your faith
stronger.
builds.
And
you realize why it says so many times, fear not.
Yep.
Fear not.
So.
If God's for us, who can be against us?
Exactly right.
So.
Yeah. And when the devil has you, he don't need you.
Right.
So it's when you're doing God's work and you're doing the good things
that you're gonna.
That's when you're gonna feel it because he don't have you. He's like, oh no, get back here, get back. I don't have that person. I need to attack them.
Yes.
And so it does that sometimes, like you say, you will stop and just but you persevere, you push through, and that's where the true character lies, right there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's in anything, no matter what it is, whether it's in a leadership, whether it's an employee, a business, in anything. You know, if you're going to do it with integrity, do it with honor, do it with accountability. I don't care what it is, but when you're willing to hide that and not be transparent and not put your cards on the table, especially in the inner circle.
Right.
You know, like it doesn't have to be public. But if you force that hand, you're the one that forced that hand.
Exactly.
So, like, we tried to do this.
Right.
like you know,
however many times and ways we could try to do that, and then there's nowhere else to go.
There's nowhere else. So you have to make it public and get everyone else involved, and that's how I see it.
Right.
You know, because again, you can only do so much.
Exactly.
And once you're being ignored, it's just like, okay, well, let's see how everyone else feels about this.
Right.
You know.
So. And it's tough because it's easy, and people tend to be more supportive if you're kind of speaking out about something on a more ephemeral level, or like a wider level, say. But when it's those personal community things that you're having to speak out on, then that's when it kind of feelings get involved, and people get offended, and it's like, well, I'm, like you said, I laid all my cards out. I'm trying to do the right thing here, and you left me no other way to go.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I feel like there tends to be more compromise, and I feel like at a personal, local level, we need to make sure that we're standing in integrity no matter what.
That's awesome. So. That is. Well, Sarah, I definitely appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you
coming out and just being willing to have this conversation. It's been great. It really has, and I wish you the best of luck, April the 5th. And so, like I say, I do believe God puts people in the positions that they need to be, and so the fact that you had you didn't inspire to do this, but yet you saw something needed to be done. That's, to me, is intervention. Yeah. And that's God intervening and saying, hey, let me put that. So when people say, oh, I don't hear God talk to us, well, no, you're not going to hear his voice. But when you get that little thought in your mind, and
you feel that compelling.
You do. You do. So
in your spirit, and like, okay.
That's how I
don't need to shy from something that he's putting in front of me to say, hey,
exactly right.
I need you.
Yeah.
So,
and that's his voice to me, so, and that's what I tell all the time. I don't hear a voice. It's here. It's here.
Right. The still quiet voice.
Exactly right. And then that's what propels you to do it. And then you just get this overwhelming support, and then,
and you're trusting him no matter what.
Exactly right.
Wherever he takes you, and even, whatever happens, you're trusting him, because this is not by my own desire or will. It's by me trusting him and following him every step of the way. Yeah. So whatever happens, I'm good.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. Great attitude. Like, truly, I love it. And no matter what, I know you're going to do great things.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I really do feel that April the 5th, you'll be put where, again, I think it's God's calling. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. But again, I appreciate everything that you said your parents do, and that's, you want to plug that, the location?
Oh, my restaurant?
Yeah.
We are at 5082 Sunset Boulevard on 378 in Lexington. We're right across from the Target Shopping Center. Gotcha. But yeah, and we just opened up a boutique next door. This past November, we just opened up a little gift shop and boutique, and you can come check that out too.
Awesome. Well, you guys heard it. So y'all make sure you swing by and grab some food, check out the boutique, and support your local businesses. That's one of the number one things we can do. That's how we keep them around. So. But yeah, I do. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing how everything goes out in April. And
Thank you.
Maybe the next time we have a conversation, it can be
a
victory conversation.
That would be amazing. I would love to.
Yes. All right, South Carolina. Well, that was Sarah Grace Allen, and as always, you heard it here first. Stay tuned for the next one.